Hey guys, Tyler Berger here with BassFishingHQ, and today I'm going to talk about chatterbait or spinnerbait. Which one do you throw, why, where, all those type of things. Stay tuned, it's going to be a good one. I want to talk real quick about misconceptions with both of these baits. And the truth is that I hear it a lot of times that people say that chatterbaits and spinnerbaits don't work in clear water, and that couldn't be further from the truth. These baits in the right situation work fantastic in clear water. Now you do need the right conditions, and really if you're fishing really clear water, the biggest thing that's going to be your best friend is wind. Okay, both of these lures are going to work really well in clear water when you have windy conditions. As a matter of fact, if you put willow leaf blades on a spinnerbait, you can fish it up north for big smallmouth in clear water, literally just burning that sucker right below the surface. That's a great way to catch really big smallmouth, and it works in really clear water. The same thing with a chatterbait. A chatterbait, one of the places it excels is when you're fishing it underneath docks in clear water situations, right? It's the same thing. You're keeping it real close to the surface of the water, and the bass really will come up and just smash that bait. So big misconception before we get into tips is that these lures don't work in clear water, and they definitely both will work in clear water given the right circumstances. So to be real honest with you guys, I don't think that there's a real clear answer to chatterbait versus a spinnerbait. The thing is that really whatever one the bass are biting better is the one you want to throw. And I know that sounds simple, and I know that it doesn't really answer the question, but that's the truth, because these two lures can really be fairly interchangeable, right? You can throw them in a lot of the exact same situations. Now, there are a few situations, which I'm about to talk about, where I think one might be a little bit better than the other, but in any case, you might be able to throw the other one and still get bit, maybe even get better. So if you think the bass are gonna bite one, I would rig up both of them, right? And I would have both of them on the front deck of your boat, or both of them in your backpack if you're bank fishing, whatever it may be, and throw both of them, and the fish are gonna tell you which one that they like more than the other. So let's first talk about a few situations where I do think that the chatterbait plays a little bit better than the spinnerbait. The first situation is anytime that you need to skip a lure, right? Believe it or not, you can actually skip a spinnerbait somewhat. By kind of putting a large profile plastic on your spinnerbait, you can actually skip a spinnerbait, but it doesn't skip near as good as a chatterbait. A chatterbait actually skips really well. You can skip chatterbaits under docks. You can skip chatterbaits under overhanging trees. You can skip chatterbaits under basically anything you want, and it's gonna skip just like a jig. It'll skip extremely far, and it's gonna go exactly where you want it to go. So anytime that you're in a position where you're needing to skip a bait, maybe that's fishing docks, right? Fishing docks, a lot of guys think of fishing some sort of plastic or jig. But a chatterbait is literally one of the best dock fishing baits on the planet. And the thing is that you're presenting a bait in a horizontal fashion to fish under a dock that typically are seeing a lot of vertical presentations, right? They're seeing a lot of jigs come vertically. They're seeing a lot of wacky rig Senkos come vertically. But a chatterbait, you can skip up under there extremely far, and you're presenting the bait in a horizontal manner. And because you're doing something that's a little bit differently, that's what's going to trigger bass to bite. So anytime you need to skip a lure, I'm going to go with the chatterbait a lot more than the spinnerbait, just because it skips a lot better. The other time that I think that a chatterbait really excels in grass situations. If you're fishing some offshore grass, some submergent grass like milfoil or coontail or hydrilla, I think that a chatterbait actually does a little bit better. It tends to come through that grass better. You're able to kind of clean the bait when you snap the hook a lot better than the spinnerbait. And that's why you see a lot of tournaments won on grass lakes with a chatterbait. Now again, a spinnerbait can work really, really well in grass, and it did for years before the chatterbait came about. But the chatterbait is really just a little bit better tool to be able to really fish grass effectively. So the other time that I think a chatterbait is going to be better than a spinnerbait is any time where you think that the bass are really hitting a bait when it falls, right? And this happens a lot when you're fishing grass, kind of like what we just talked about. What happens is you're fishing that bait through the grass, and every now and then you get hung and you rip that bait out and it pops out of the grass and it falls, and bam, the bass hit it. That's a reaction strike that you just created. Now this bait, when it falls, the bass can eat it better than a spinnerbait when it falls, because when a spinnerbait falls, sometimes it tends to twist and a bass can hit it from the wrong angle, and it's going to have this wire in the way and things like that. And so I think that if you think that bass are typically eating that bait when it falls, maybe you're reeling it past some rocks or a stump and you kill that bait, that's when I think that a chatterbait really shines, because almost no matter how a bass eats it and sucks it in, they're gonna have a hook there ready to get them. Where a spinnerbait, if they kind of hit it at the wrong angle, that wire at the top might prevent a hook from really getting hooked in them very well. So let's talk about a spinnerbait. To me, one of the best places that a spinnerbait really shines is in wood. A spinnerbait can come through wood actually really, really well, like unbelievably well. Like you're throwing it like into laydowns and it's coming through really, really well. And that's one of the best things about a spinnerbait, is that it comes through wood really well. Now, a chatterbait, depending on what trailer you are using, will actually come through wood fairly well too. Now I actually created a chatterbait video that shows you this exact tip. You can click on that link here if you want. But a chatterbait will come through wood, but it doesn't come through wood near as good as a spinnerbait. A spinnerbait really seems to be able to come right over logs and laydowns really, really well, and I can fish wood cover really, really effectively with a spinnerbait. Now another place that I think a spinnerbait really, really shines is in muddy water, right? And this is really, really close here, like between a chatterbait and a spinnerbait, because they both can work really, really well in muddy water. But to me, I think a spinnerbait is just a little bit better. And I don't know why, I just feel like I have seen that fishing, that a spinnerbait is just gonna get a few more bites. I don't know if it has more vibration. I don't know exactly the reason why. That's just my personal opinion. I like a spinnerbait when I'm fishing really, really muddy water. And maybe because in muddy water, you are fishing a lot of objects, right? You're fishing like wood and stumps and stuff like that. And I think that a spinnerbait just does better around that type of covers. Now, another time that I think a spinnerbait really shines is anytime you're trying to draw fish from far away, okay? And what I mean by that is that if you have willow leaf blades on a spinnerbait, it puts out a lot of flash, right? A lot of flash. And if you're fishing clear water, that flash is gonna be picked up from a bass from a long ways away, even better than just the color of a chatterbait. And so if you're fishing very, very clear water, or you're trying to draw fish from a long distance, I think a spinnerbait is actually what you want to go with because of the flash. The flash is going to be what gets those fish to come from far away. They're going to see it, and you're going to have a little bit more drawing power with a spinnerbait. One other tournament tactic that I'm going to talk about when it comes to choosing a chatterbait versus a spinnerbait is if you think that the other competitors are throwing one more than the other, I like to throw the opposite, right? If you go to Florida a lot, you have a lot of guys that are fishing a lot of chatterbaits, right? Down there, I like to throw a spinnerbait. You know, we saw Rick Clunn do this just a couple of years ago, and he won at the St. Johns River throwing a spinnerbait, right? And I think a lot of guys would typically throw a chatterbait in a lot of those situations. And the same thing vice versa, right? If you go into a lot of the Oklahoma type areas, you get into a lot of spinnerbait country down there where a lot of guys are throwing spinnerbaits. Just because everyone's throwing a spinnerbait, you might want to throw a chatterbait, right? You're going to have a different vibration with each. So if you think that other guys are fishing one a lot more than the other, throw the opposite and it might be the deal. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It kind of clears up some things. It kind of doesn't. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.